Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving in to decode a literal hidden superpower, the picture smart child. If you've ever watched a student completely struggle with a standard textbook, but then turn around and effortlessly construct these massive, complex worlds out of building blocks, well, you're in exactly the right place. We're going to unpack the actual science behind this unique cognitive strength and give you some highly actionable strategies to completely transform how you approach teaching and homeschooling.
Let's kick things off with a pretty tough question. If traditional lectures and written tests just aren't working, is it possible that your educational approach is actually clashing with your child's natural cognitive strengths? We so often assume that if a child isn't grasping a concept through reading or listening, there must be a problem with their effort or worse, their ability. But what if the curriculum itself is simply speaking the wrong language? What if their brain is just wired to process information in a fundamentally different way?
All right, Section 1. Meet the picture smart learner. To really wrap our heads around this learner, we need to look at educational psychology, specifically Dr. Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. It's a theory that proves there is absolutely more than one way to be smart. He defines spatial visual intelligence as the ability to accurately perceive the visual spatial world and then mentally transform, manipulate, or modify those perceptions. Children with strong spatial intelligence, often called being picture smart, they think in these incredibly vivid mental pictures. They have this completely natural ability to look at an object, an empty room, or just a pile of raw materials, and see what something could be just as easily as what it currently is. So, and this is absolutely crucial to understand, we aren't just talking about a quirky learning style here. This is a profound capacity to understand shapes, patterns, colors, and the relationships of objects in space. It's the capacity to manipulate both large-scale spaces and confined areas. Think of it less as a preference for looking at pictures and more like a highly sophisticated cognitive operating system that absolutely thrives on visual data. Moving right along to Section 2, the engine of spatial intelligence. Just take a look at these careers. Architects, graphic artists, surgeons, pilots, chess players. Honestly, it's wild when you think about it, because this specific cognitive strength is the exact mental engine used by visionaries, like the architect Frank Lloyd Wright or aviation pioneer Amelia Earhart, to navigate and deeply influence their entire fields. I mean, a surgeon needs to mentally visualize confined spaces inside the human body, right? And a pilot needs to manipulate complex spatial imagery on a massive scale. Fun fact for you, Albert Einstein famously relied on visual thought experiments, not just math, to develop the theory of relativity. So when your child is in the living room building an elaborate fort, they are literally revving that exact same genius engine.
Okay, Section 3, visualizing abstract concepts. So we know what this mental engine is, but how do we actually fuel it? How do we take traditionally dry, abstract concepts and translate them for these kids? Well, you make the invisible visible by using color. Take grammar, for example, which is totally the bane of many visual learners. Instead of just lecturing on parts of speech, try this. It's a real game changer. Photocopy a story, hand your child a pack of differently colored highlighters, and just have them color code the text. Nouns are blue, verbs are green, adjectives are yellow. Suddenly, having them highlight specific parts of speech turns this confusing, abstract wall of text into a clear, vibrant, visual pattern that their brain can easily decode and, more importantly, remember. And when it comes to general note-taking, yeah, standard bullet points usually just fall flat for spatial learners. Instead, encourage color coding or using digital artboards or digital mind mapping tools like Coggle. These tools let students draw connections, create visual branches, and map out exactly how different concepts relate to one another. It basically gives them a structure that perfectly aligns with how their brains naturally want to organize data. Which brings us to Section 4, designing literature and play. Let's look past grammar for a second and talk about literature. Notice the stark contrast here. On one side, we have the traditional written book report. Now, for a picture smart child, this can feel like a massive linguistic roadblock. But on the other side, we have a visual map. Imagine you guys are reading Romeo and Juliet. Instead of forcing a written summary of the plot, what if you allowed your child to draw a detailed map of Verona that illustrates all the story's important locations? They are still demonstrating a really deep comprehension of the text, but they're tapping directly into their natural strengths to do it. And the options here are literally endless. You could have them create a comic strip summarizing a chapter. They could design a wanted poster for the story's villain, complete with all their visual character flaws. They could build a 3D model of a pivotal scene using clay or blocks. You can even leverage technology by letting them demonstrate their learning through PowerPoint presentations, digital scrapbooks, or video projects.
Plus, we have to remember that learning absolutely does not stop when the books close. Play is the work of childhood. Look at these activities: building forts and tall towers, constructing sprawling matchbox car towns, getting outside and drawing with sidewalk chalk, solving mazes, assembling puzzles, or, and kids love this one, even letting them help rearrange their bedroom furniture. Do not underestimate these moments. Giving them open-ended materials to interact with, space physically, is actively exercising and strengthening that spatial visual engine.
Finally, Section 5, assessing through a new lens. Okay, we have to talk about the ultimate hurdle in education, testing. How do we accurately measure what these picture-smart students actually know if traditional methods are failing them? Well, when assessing a spatial visual learner, standard written multiple choice tests can be a terrible metric of their actual intelligence. Moving away from standard tests and letting them show you their knowledge visually completely changes the game. Let them design a board game based on a historical event, or create a visual metaphor, or draw a chart, a cluster, a graph. These methods, they're going to give you a much more accurate, high-resolution picture of their true comprehension. There's this fantastic tool mentioned in the source material called a choice board. It's basically a tic-tac-toe grid of diverse project options, and they're all mapped to different intelligences. By offering this kind of choice, you're allowing students to bypass those linguistic roadblocks entirely. They can confidently and powerfully tackle subjects they might otherwise find super difficult just by electing to use their unique visual pathways to prove what they've learned. By leaning into these visual and spatial methods, we aren't just making learning easier. We are deeply, deeply empowering our kids. We're showing them that their unique mind is a massive asset, not a deficit. Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought for you to take away from this explainer today. If a child has the superpower to build an entire, complex world in their mind, why would we ever test them only with words on a page?